Hey there, I'm Simon Coleman from SHA Risk Specialists, and in this short video I'll be helping you to understand a little more about cyber insurance. Former Director of the FBI, Robert Mueller, referenced cybercrime when he said it is no longer a question of if, but rather when and how often. I'm convinced, he said, that there are only two types of companies, those that have already been hacked and those that still will be. Now that's pretty scary stuff, especially given that he made that statement over 10 years ago. Today, cybercrime is very common, and even here in South Africa, we've had some very large-scale, well-orchestrated and very well-publicized attacks which have affected millions of individuals in the country. There are many reports available online that list countries in terms of cybercrime prevalence, and you'll often find South Africa listed somewhere in the top 10, depending on which report you look at. Cyber insurance policies, which believe it or not have actually been around since the mid-90s, do appear to be quite complex at first glance. So it is best that you chat to your insurance broker before you make any decisions about coverage. Now, I've discovered in the many presentations that I've delivered on the subject that it's a good idea to compare cyber insurance with automotive insurance. I know it sounds weird, but just bear with me for a second. You see, motor insurance policies generally have an own damage section as well as a liability section. The own damage section is where we cover first-party incidents. In other words, that's the bit that I'd use to fix my own car in the event of an accident. And the third-party or liability section is used to cover the damage to the other vehicle. Now, cyber cover at its core is also a combination of first and third-party covers with some additional bells and whistles to take into account the digital exposure. The first-party section makes sure my system can get back up and running as quickly as possible, whilst the third-party sections make sure that I have access to attorneys if some third party alleges that I've caused them a loss. Now, cyber policies don't respond to car accidents, of course, but instead respond to cyber incidents, such as the hacking of your network or database, ransomware attacks, viruses, malware, etc. Now, I've found that the easiest way to understand cyber insurance is to break the cover down into quadrants, like these. Now, note that when you open up your policy document, it probably won't have the covers listed like this, but in 99% of the policies, okay, 99.5%, these elements of cover will be present and will form the core of the cyber protection. Firstly, we have the liability quadrant. Now, in this part of the policy, the business has cover for legal defense costs or expenses, as well as damages. And it's important to note that when we talk about damages in the liability environment, we aren't referring to physical damage, but rather the amount that's being claimed as compensation by a third party. If they had approached the court, for instance, this would be the amount that they were looking to claim from you, who is alleged to have released their confidential information out into the public environment. So a third party could be a customer, an employee, or basically any party that makes that allegation that they've suffered some kind of loss as a result of the attack on your business systems. Now, it's important to remember that if your business is holding personal or confidential data belonging to customers or employees, etc., that if that data somehow finds itself in the wrong hands, you could find yourself not only facing a fine by the information regulator, we'll talk a little bit more about that later, but also having to defend yourself in court and possibly be ordered to compensate the affected people, particularly if their compromised data has been used to perpetrate identity theft. Now, identity theft is really when criminals take out loans or open accounts in the name of the victim, and often the first time the victim hears about this is when the sheriff arrives to repossess their goods or summons arrives from the creditor. Terrible situation to go through. So the liability section is pretty important, especially for businesses that hold a lot of third-party data. It could be law firms, auditors, online retailers, insurance brokers, etc. Now, moving into the next quadrant, this is really where the policy seeks to cover the business's own losses following a cyber incident. the costs of investigating what happened, getting a team of data breach response experts in, and then of course the expenses involved in actually getting the system back up and running again. And depending on the severity of the incident, these costs can run into the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, especially in larger businesses. Now, of course, many businesses are totally reliant on their systems, meaning that if the network is down or inoperable, there would be a loss of business revenue. And the policy talks about covering the loss of net profit normally, but in essence, what you're really talking about here are business interruption losses. Now, you'd be forgiven for thinking about data-heavy businesses when we have these conversations. But remember that these days, entire factories are run by digitally connected systems, meaning even a manufacturer who doesn't have a lot of data could be shut down entirely by a cyber incident affecting their processing plant. This part of the policy also generally responds to costs associated with ransomware and would even include the ransom itself, although most underwriters will generally have minimum requirements regarding backups before they go on risk, as you can well imagine. So that's the quadrant that really helps the business to get back on its feet after an attack as quickly as possible. The third quadrant deals with the reputation of the business. Falling victim to a cyber attack doesn't necessarily mean the business has done anything wrong or any of the people in it, particularly as the crime is so rife at the moment. But perception is everything, and often the brand takes a bit of a beating, especially on social media. So to help mitigate brand damage and to rebuild trust, the policy also covers the costs of getting in a public relations crisis team. Now, they can be very useful in communicating with the public generally and specific customers that were affected by the breach, putting their minds at ease and making sure that the situation is under control. Now, the final quadrant has become increasingly important. And this is where insurers help the business to deal with some of the regulatory fallout that is associated with a data breach or incident. Now, every country has its own regulations around data privacy, and here in SA, it's the POPI Act, the Protection of Personal Information Act. Now, a breach of this regulation can really land the business in hot water. Fines can be up to 10 million rand per incident, and can even involve jail time for the responsible or accountable person in the company. Now, most cyber policies cover the defense costs against the impositions of these enormous fines, and at the present time will even cover the fine itself as long as it's allowed by the regulator. The costs of notifying affected data subjects, normally your customers, and the often very expensive process of monitoring their credit profiles of victims are all covered here. Now, that's really the basics of a cyber policy. And you might be wondering if this type of insurance is aimed at big corporates or SMEs. Now, the answer is both. We know that big companies get attacked all the time. Those are the ones that make the papers. And they've been buying cover for years. But we also have noted recently that small businesses are falling victim in large numbers. In our annual risk review last year, over 30% of SMEs reported that they'd been attacked in the past 24 months, and 82% of those said that they'd suffered some kind of business interruption. And in 12%, sorry, a lot of percentage points floating around here, in 12% of the 82% that suffered a business interruption, the costs were more than 1 million rand. Now, that's a lot of money, especially in a struggling economy, and if it's uninsured, could be the difference between a business staying open or having to close down. So it's a really good time to chat to your broker about insuring your business against cybercrime. I'm Simon Coleman from SHA Risk Specialists, a division of Santam. Thanks for tuning in. Please make sure you follow our channel for more useful specialist insurance videos in future. Thank you and goodbye.